We are all Republicans. We are all Federalists. Thomas Jefferson said that at his first inauguration in 1801, trying to cool a young nation after a bruising election. It's a tidy line. But we're going to see how messy governing actually was for the so-called people's president. Shrinking government while fighting pirates. Buying an empire while worrying about constitutional limits. Preaching neutrality while getting dragged toward war. And championing liberty while living in a household defined by slavery. That tension between ideals and reality runs straight through the early republic.
And those tensions didn't stay abstract. They really set in motion decisions that shaped the map of North America, the power of the Supreme Court, and the lives of Native nations from the Ohio Valley all the way to the Gulf.
Yeah, so today we're going to go from the Louisiana Purchase to the burning of Washington, D.C., the defense of Fort McHenry, and we'll trace how Jefferson's era teed up really the War of 1812, why the war ended with no clear winner on paper, but huge consequences in practice. All right, so let's start with a quick mini bio here.
Bio. Jefferson.
Yes. New century.
DJ.
New century.
DJ.
New century.
DJ.
Yeah, so with Jefferson
That was good.
winning the election of 1800, we are in a new century, so I guess that music was apropos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jefferson, who is he? So he's a planter, a lawyer, the author of the Declaration, governor of Virginia, a diplomat in France, Washington's Secretary of State, and John Adams' vice president. All of that before the Revolution of 1800. And
If you love him so much, why don't you just marry him?
I do really,
What's not to love?
I really
is
do
what
love
say.
Jefferson.
His hypocrisy.
Well, yeah, but doesn't
Love it.
his hypocrisy help us all understand the complexities of humanity just a little bit more?
I think that's the key word, humanity. He's
Yeah,
human.
He's human.
Well,
Deeply
humanity,
flawed.
the human who enslaved over
Yep.
600 human beings in his life.
Deeply flawed.
I don't know if there's an apology to be made for that.
Is it not being human to be inhuman?
Wow.
Right?
What?
Yeah, no apologies for Jefferson. Deeply flawed man, but a really interesting historical figure. I think we all can say that.
And he
He's
had a
so
sweet wine
interesting.
collection.
He had a wine. Yeah.
Oh.
he did
I
a lot
hope
of-
people say that about me when I'm gone. You know, she was so interesting.
Right.
And she had a sweet wine collection.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, not that part, just the other part. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So Washington, yes, interesting dude.
Washington.
Excuse me, Jefferson, interesting dude.
Wake up!
Washington was also interesting. Well, you know, it's been a hard day.
Has it?
Uh,
Oh my gosh. Hold on.
I-
Let me figure out the right recording for this.
I'll talk.
Hold
slowly.
on. I can't remember. Is the trombone that's sad, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. What would be? Oh, I know. We could do one of ours. Say what happened.
This morning, I left my house without my coffee mug, and I did not have my coffee.
What?
And it's been
How many children did you kill today?
I forgot my coffee mug. A novel.
yeah. What I tell you, what was rough is right as I realized this, a few minutes later, Miss Keltner walks by with multiple things of coffee from Starbucks that she'd purchased for friends.
Door, and I'm like, "Hey, happy last day before fall break." I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like overflowing with coffee.
Yeah, that really hurt.
and none of it for you.
No.
Oh, boy.
You should have called me. I would have brought you coffee.
So my idea was to post on our Instagram account about how I was sad about not having coffee, and I thought one of our listeners may, because you know several of our students stop every day at
Yeah.
Starbucks.
Right.
I thought maybe they would take pity.
Nobody. Well,
Nobody.
here's the problem. I posted it on my personal account, not realizing it, so I had to delete it. So I only posted it probably about 7 minutes before
then-
school started.
boy.
So I didn't give
Unbelievable.
it much time. That's on me.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me for getting confused there for a second. Yes, Jefferson, interesting dude. He did a lot of experiments. He messed around with all new types of horticulture and seeds. He was an architect. He had all kinds of inventions. He even had he created the first swivel chair, apparently.
We're in swivel
And we
chairs
are
right
in
now,
swivel
yeah.
chairs. So
Thanks, Jefferson.
maybe most important, though, he was an Enlightenment figure who was deeply moved by Enlightenment philosophies. And this was why he really believed that society could be perfected with enough careful, rational study.
And yet, Jefferson was also a slaveholder. And enslaved labor really underpinned his whole life at Monticello, his house just outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. And the majority of historians today accept the evidence that Jefferson fathered children with Sally Hemings, who was an enslaved woman at Monticello. And this really underscores the degree to which his personal world contradicted his public rhetoric about liberty and equality. And I think, we shouldn't come at it from a presentist point of view. That can be dangerous when studying history. However, Jefferson was very aware that what he was doing was immoral and unethical and wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And he still, upon his death, does not free those who he enslaved. And so that's my biggest issue with Jefferson. It's not that everybody else was doing this and he was somehow a man of his times. I mean, he was a man of his times, but he also knew it was wrong.
Right, and he wrote about it. And
Yeah.
and one of the of several quotations that Jefferson pens about slavery is, I think he really thought that slavery was going to die on the vine eventually. But my favorite quote about he and slavery.
Can I guess it?
Yes, go.
Firebell in the Night?
Oh, it's not. That's
Oh.
not my favorite.
Oh.
But I like that one too. He says this is going to be the death knell of America. Holding on to slavery. Another better one, I think, is he said, slavery is like holding a wolf by the ears.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't like it, but you didn't dare let go.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. It's a good
There
one.
it is.
Yeah, that is a classic one.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
So,
he knew the most. It's like the definition of a villain is someone who knows the most but does the least to change it.
ooh,
And so I think that does put him in this role
Yeah.
that it's very hard to excuse or look past.
and all of this stuff mattered politically. They shaped how Americans argued about freedom, about race, about citizenship, and all of those those paradoxical situations, high ideals, human entanglements, will echo all episode long.
Yeah,
Indeed.
I'd like to keep going.
Verily.
We are going to have a music break, but I'd like to
Okay.
keep going.
Okay, so
Sorry.
Somebody's trying to get out of
It's
here.
it was probably all
This
the
is
coffee.
live.
It was probably all the coffee she had, and
Yeah.
none of it that you had.
Little
And then
Right,
I went
right.
to lunch and I didn't get you guys anything.
No.
And
Does
again.
Mr. Hill know where you went?
I went to Grassi's for lunch.
Favorite spot of everybody.
Yeah.
Except for those who don't get invited.
Yeah,
I
we
guess it's,
didn't even know.
I'm sorry.
Must be nice
Yeah.
to lead the life that some of us live.
It is
Wouldn't be-
nice. Let's get back to Jefferson's life.
Must be nice. Okay, so Jefferson promised, in essence, a cheaper, smaller federal government, and he pushed to reduce the national debt, cut internal taxes, and scale back the Army and the Navy.
Yes, and sorry, just drinking my soda from
gosh.
Grassi's that I didn't bring you anything from. Okay. Yes, the world will not stand still for this philosophy about having a smaller government and a smaller executive. And that's really going to force Jefferson's hand in a lot of ways, especially in the Mediterranean. In the North African states, these were often called the Barbary regencies or the Barbary states. We're talking like Tripoli and what else would be up
because
there?
like the Marine fight song from
Yeah.
the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Tripoli.
A lot of
Yes.
people are like, what the heck's Tripoli?
Yeah, North Africa
There you go.
on the Mediterranean. And for generations, these Barbary states in North Africa had forced countries, Europeans and now Americans, to pay tribute, basically so that their pirates would not attack European or American ships. And Jefferson balks at this. He's like, we're not paying any tribute to these pirates. Arg!
And that's what they said.
Arg, matey.
R. Yeah.
No, that definitely is a stereotype. And
Who be
was
this
not
TJ fella?
Yeah.
Arg.
But anyway, Jefferson's like, and we are not paying this tribute. And so instead of paying it, he's going to deploy the Navy to the Barbary States. And what's going to follow is a series of naval and marine operations. There's no formal war declaration, but this is definitely a fight. And if you, we're not going to go into detail about the Barbary Wars, but they're really interesting. There's a ton of interesting stuff about contingency plans and the
you're
secret.
making it. You're really selling it.
Yeah, there is. I did a whole
Contingency
presentation on the Barbary
Did you make
wars.
a slideshow?
I did.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
whoa.
awesome. It was awesome. When I was in
We'll put it in
grad
the show
school.
notes.
Yeah, and so anyway, there's a lot of cool spy stuff and things like that. But again, no formal war declaration. But this is really going to test this vision that Jefferson comes in with of being peaceful and also being frugal, because even undeclared wars cost a lot of money. So it's the first of many not Jacksonian, sorry, I'm thinking about class today. First of many Jeffersonian paradoxes, rolling back the military, but also sending ships into harm's way.
So if we think about causation in comparison, we're constantly doing this in AP. So we've got Jefferson's Democratic Republicans arguing against a large standing military because that threatened individual liberty. And you had Federalists that said, look, we need a military to be ready to deter potential dangers abroad. And then ultimately Jefferson is going to have to go back on those Democratic Republican principles and improve the United States military. It costs a lot of money. And here again, reality is forcing his hand.
And so let's pivot away from foreign policy for a second and talk about the courts. In his final hours, outgoing President John Adams had signed commissions for new Federalist judges, otherwise known as midnight appointments or midnight judges. So when Jefferson takes office, some commissions had not yet been delivered. Jefferson told his Secretary of State, James Madison, not to deliver them.
And William Marbury, he was one of those would-be judges. If Adams's midnight appointments had gone through, Madison does not deliver those commissions on paper. And so William Marbury is going to sue in the famous case now known as Marbury versus Madison in 1803. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at the time, John Marshall, he's going to manage a political judo move, if you will. And then you're supposed to say, I will.
I will.
Okay.
Political judo move.
Yeah.
He's going to say, yes, Marbury, sorry, you're not going to get your commission. But the court is also going to rule on something way bigger. They're going to announce this principle called judicial review. And as Marshall put it,
Judicial review.
ooh, judicial review.
Yeah.
Judicial review.
Yeah.
There we go.
So judicial review, as Marshall put it, quote, it is emphatically the province and the duty of the judicial department to say what the law is, giving the Supreme Court its highest power, which is the ability to determine the constitutionality of laws through all of the nation. And so this line is going to enshrine the court's power to strike down laws that violate the Constitution. And so this isn't written into the Constitution, but John Marshall is like, this is within our power to be able to determine this.
Yeah, and a lot of the details and the ins and outs of how this came about and the rulings is a little complicated. But what students and what really people interested in the story need to remember is the separation of powers gives the court its own ability to check and balance the executive and Congress. And Marbury is the case that establishes the power for the courts to do that. So Marbury v. Madison, judicial review, huge moment for the courts, and it's going to be with us up until present day.
Yeah, and I mean, even though that power had nothing to do with William Marbury and his issue with the commission, it was just like, hey, by the way, because it was about Marbury not being able to bring his – it was something about the Judiciary Act of 1789.
Yeah. So, the long story short, the ruling is that, we can't do this because we don't the law that gave the court this power is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can establish that
Determine that
is
to
the power
be
that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
Complicated, but
Judo.
judo.
Judo move.
right, so let's now turn our attention to the West. And across the Mississippi, we've got Napoleon and his ambitions for a global empire collapsing, largely because in Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti, France's North American project is falling apart following the revolution there. And as a result, the United States sees an opportunity to maybe make an offer to Napoleon to get access to the city of New Orleans, the port of New Orleans. Jefferson was ready to make a deal, but Napoleon is like, look, I've had enough of the West. I'm ready to just sell out completely, giving Jefferson one of the greatest real estate deals of all time, $15 million to double the size of the United States. What's he going to do?
Well, he's got a problem because this goes against his very principles, right? That in the Constitution, it is not written word for word that the president can acquire real estate through deals like this. So Jefferson was a strict constructionist of the Constitution in principle. That's important to acknowledge. In principle, he believed that if it's not directly written in the document, you can't do it. But this real estate deal comes along, and he's like, yeah, this is pretty good.
This is pretty good.
Can't
It's
pass
pretty
this
good. You know, away with my principles. So he's going to rationalize it as a treaty power under powers actually spelled out in the Constitution for the executive branch. And this is another, stretch between his wish to be a strict constructionist, but the realities of governing and having to be practical when opportunities present themselves. So he's going to send the Corps of Discovery. Say it, ASMR.
The Corps of Discovery.
Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark.
We love Lewis and Clark.
We do.
In
We
this
do.
area, we do for sure. And they're going to go out and they're going to map, measure, and report on the peoples and possibilities of the West.
So why is it that we here in the St. Louis region like Lewis and Clark so much?
Well, Dr. Garrison, I think it's because they started here.
Well, yeah, that, but it's an adventure. It's from a European perspective, you're seeing everything for the first time, and there are
Right.
all these wild stories about monsters and giant people and creatures and and stuff that we've never seen before.
It was a vast unknown, and they were the first to report on it back to the eager ears.
Did you guys read Ambrose's Undaunted
Yeah.
Courage? So
Yeah, I really like that.
I always found it interesting that
I didn't.
well, yeah, we weren't going to point that out, but if you were feeling bad about not reading the book, that's okay. Out of all of the different kinds of meat that the men ate along the way, they would kill deer, antelope, elk,
Yeah.
buffalo, whatever. They preferred, above all else, dog.
What?
Really?
Yeah, I
don't remember that.
I remember that reading it and going, "What?"
Well, they brought a dog with them.
Well, they
Well, yeah, hopefully they didn't eat him.
they did.
Hopefully not.
They did. I don't think they did.
Was it like wild Indian dogs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like dogs that the natives had domesticated.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and luckily they had native guides throughout.
Oh,
one of the most famous being Sacagawea.
Yeah, they could not have made it without Sacagawea.
Yeah.
Do you know the story?
Go ahead.
Well, so Sacagawea was in early childhood had been sort of stolen, traded, and sent to another tribe. So when they are headed toward the mountains and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to cross the Rockies in time because they don't have enough horses, they run into the Shoshone. And turns out it's Sacagawea's long-lost brother who is
Really?
the chief of this particular Shoshone group. And it's a wonderful reunion. And he offers them Shoshone ponies so that they can make it across.
Shoshone ponies.
So they can make it across the mountains.
Every time I go out to Colorado, I got to tell you, I look at those Rockies and I think, how'd they do it?
Yep, well, I just told you, Shoshone
How?
ponies.
But even with a Shoshone pony,
Shoshone ponies.
looking at those mountains, I would have just been like, nah,
Yeah, turn around.
I've seen enough.
That's me too.
I'm
Listen,
good.
that's another good band name, the Shoshone Ponies.
Yeah,
The
I do
Shoshone
like that.
ponies.
Right.
Yeah, so Lewis and
We're
Clark.
not phony. We're not full of baloney. With the Shoshone ponies. All right. So Let's pivot it here a little bit. The Atlantic, as in the ocean, became kind of a minefield.
It's in the ocean.
As in the ocean,
Not the
there's-
magazine.
There's an Atlantic magazine.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I just wanted to clear that up. Britain, or actually, as I say, Britain,
Yeah.
but I don't say Britain.
No.
With it, we've talked about the hard T and the soft T. They're locked in a war with. Oh, let's guess. Could it be France? Yeah, it is. It's Napoleon. Claimed the right to stop neutral ships and impress sailors. Now, by that we don't mean that like they did a song and dance and they're
Right.
like, "Oh, impressive."
Although that would have
No.
been kind of
That would have been
fun.
kind of fun. So they're seizing alleged British subjects and forcing them back into the Royal Navy. And Americans, of course, saw this as kidnapping.
Yeah, because they're American citizens.
Yeah, I don't
What
know
was
why
that-
we said.
Why was that heavy breath? What was that about? That was really weird, Miss Keltner.
Well, I just was seeing so. Gosh, Mr. Hill is losing it.
Oh my God!
All I have to do is breathe, and Mr. Hill loses it.
It
was
was
a
a really
strange
funny
breath.
It was a
because-
really funny breath. I'm
Because
sorry.
you said seize Napoleon, locked in a war with Napoleon, claimed the right to stop neutral ships and impress sailors, seize alleged British subjects and force them into the Royal Navy. But they're seizing American subjects. Not subjects, sorry, we fought a war for that.
So-
American citizens.
So I think what this is Britain claimed that these sailors were actually British citizens who were masquerading.
Yeah.
They were avoiding war by masquerading as American
Yeah,
sailors.
you know
Okay.
what? You could hang out on American cargo ships, or you could go fight against France and
Yeah.
get killed. Now, which would would you choose?
Yeah, the British Navy was not.
Good thing you took that heavy breath so that we could pause and. Okay, so now we're back.
Yeah, so the Chesapeake Leopard Affair in 1807 made it visceral, this whole issue. And Jefferson is going to choose peaceable coercion through the Embargo Act of 1807, which said that no U.S. ships could go into foreign ports. So basically, trading was closed to outsiders that were not the United States. And so we'd call this today an economic sanction. This is what Jefferson does.
Yeah.
And the idea is that this economic pain is going to force Britain and France to RESPECT
Find out what it means to me.
to respect American neutrality. In practice, though, this is not going to work. New England merchants are just going to be fuming over this. Smuggling starts to boom, and the American economy, just tanks from this. And the policy is both sweeping and porous. And it's going to backfire very politically for Jefferson.
At the same time, the United States is pressing further into what they called the Old Northwest. So we're thinking like the Ohio Valley. And the U.S. leaders are going to frame the struggle here as an quote-unquote Indian problem. And this meant that it was difficult for white landowners to acquire land because Native Americans were clearly resisting and fighting back. An example of this is the Prophet in Tecumseh. So,
Say the name.
yeah, well, definitely I'm going to say the name. I was looking forward to it.
Okay,
And the name of the prophet is Tinskawatawa.
Good enough.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, and that's otherwise known as the prophet, who was a religious leader and believed in trying to culturally go back to the old ways. And his brother, Tecumseh, was the military leader, and together they built a pretty strong coalition that threatened to undermine American Western expansion.
And we've seen these native confederacies attempt to resist at first colonial encroachment and now American encroachment. This is another example of that in the early 18 teens. And Tecumseh, he's going to articulate a very powerful principle, and that is that no single tribe, because there was such a diversity of tribes, no single tribe could sell shared lands to the United States government. And in one attributed statement to Tecumseh, he said, and I quote, "No tribe has the right to sell land. Sell a country? Why not sell the air?" And this was a very vivid expression of collective sovereignty, that you can't sell land just like you can't sell air.
Right, and this sort of cultural misalignment is going to lead to Americans making pretty easy land deals for literally hundreds of thousands of acres that was divided and shared among multiple tribes. And of course, this is going to create all kinds of issues. So in 1811, Tecumseh is going to continue to recruit allies. And while he's doing this, Indiana Territory, so Indiana not yet a state, but moving in that direction, its territorial governor, William Henry Harrison, who we'll hear more from later.
Who will briefly be president.
Right. He's going to take this opportunity to march on what was called Prophetstown. And it's going to lead to the Battle of Tippecanoe. Great name for a battle.
I love it.
Badly hurt this Confederacy, right? It's going to be a major defeat for Tecumseh and the Prophet. And Americans are going to say, look, what's going on here is it's the British. They're actually stirring the pot. They're offering guns and promising native tribes an opportunity to get back old lands if they will antagonize American settlers. And whether or not Britain was actually orchestrating all of this, many Americans, quote-unquote, war hawks, took this as proof that British policy on the continent and at sea was intolerable.
And so the war hawks are gonna, they're pretty hawkish. They're not dovish,
No,
right? Or we would have called them the
doves.
What does it mean to be a war hawk?
doves. I guess you couldn't say them war doves because
Peace doves.
Yeah, peace doves.
What does it mean to be a war hawk?
I don't know.
Just
You want war.
for our audience, because
Oh,
we'll
I
talk
thought,
about
I
this.
thought you were searching for some other.
No,
clever
because
answer.
we'll discuss this again in at later times.
Yeah. So this is kind of a new generation in Congress, and you got your Henry Clay of Kentucky. You got
Check.
your John C. Calhoun of South Carolina.
Check.
Yeah. And they're the ones that are pushing for war, citing impressment, violations of neutral trade, frontier conflict. They link directly to the British and the British influencing the natives. Some also had an eye on Canada and Florida.
And we've got a new president now. We've got James Madison, Jefferson's, little buddy.
His protege.
Yeah, his protege comes in. Right after him, another Democratic Republican, and his war message is going to lean heavily on these maritime grievances, the issues with the blockades that had been set up by Britain, searches and seizures, impressment of Americans. And so Congress, because they're the ones with this power under the Constitution, Congress declares war in June of 1812. And it was a close vote, but it was largely under sectional lines, this close vote. New England was largely opposed to this war because this would mess up their trade, and this would cause a disturbance of the seas. And so, from a comparison lens, think about this as a second round with Britain over independence and over some of our unresolved issues that go all the way back to the American Revolution, especially respect for U.S. sovereignty, not only on the high seas but also in American territory. Think out by the Great Lakes.
And once fighting started, it sort of unfolds in two different ways. And straight up against Britain, the United States is going to have some pretty mixed results. Some small ship naval victories, but overall some mismanaged campaigns and a lot of defeats. Against native nations, the United States is going to have a lot of success pushing into the old Northwest and really clearing out large sections of territory in the South.
And Tecumseh, who we were just talking about, he and his Pan-Indian alliance, that's going to fall apart at the Battle of is it the Thames?
Thames.
Yeah, that's how you'd say it in
RT.
London.
I mean, that's how you
In
would
the
say
United
it in
States, we'd
England.
say Thames.
Well,
Thames?
actually, we
Thames?
wouldn't. We'd say Thames.
Battle of Thames.
Like down in Versailles.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to happen in 1813. And this is a devastating blow to that Pan-Indian alliance in the Northwest territory. And in the South, Andrew Jackson's forces are going to fight Creek factions in a brutal civil war within a war, which is going to culminate in the Treaty of Fort Jackson in 1814. And the United States is going to seize vast Creek lands. And that's a reminder, right, for Native peoples that this war and its outcomes, they're often catastrophic. And we've seen it before in the French and Indian War and the American Revolution. Regardless of the United States and the British, the outcome for Natives is truly catastrophic.
So, meanwhile, in 1814, British troops were busy burning the public buildings in Washington. Oh, we just built these.
Yeah.
They're brand new. And so
Please, you
humiliating.
guys, please stop.
Stop
But
it.
they
Stop.
wouldn't. They didn't
and
listen.
they just didn't.
They burned it all.
They didn't. The hot dogs, the marshmallows came out, and it was shocking.
Dolly Madison was like, not this portrait.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that Dolly Madison got the idea to serve sweet cakes, and those became Dolly Madison snack cakes. Dolly Madison, the brand, snack cakes.
Little
Dolly
Debbie?
Madison.
Little Debbie?
No. Dolly Madison was a big one
Hostess?
too.
I don't remember.
Hostess. You had your, Little Debbie.
I've never heard of
I've
Dolly
never heard of Dolly
Madison's.
Madison either.
Oh my God, you guys are young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody else is probably listening on this podcast are like, I don't know what the hell Mr. Hill is talking about. Anyway, if for a moment, just for a moment, it looked like the U.S. experiment might be teetering.
How bad would that have been if the British were like, hey, sign this treaty in this government, we're taking over.
Or at least occupying,
Yeah,
Washington,
yeah,
D.C.
yeah.
or something like that. But never fear, Baltimore stood firm. Whenever you think
Baltimore.
about giving up, I want you to think about Baltimore.
Right.
Stands firm at Fort McHenry, at the center of Baltimore. The rocket's red glare,
Nice.
the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the Dolly Madisons were
snack cakes were still there.
So this doesn't make for great radio, but Mr. Hill is showing us visual proof of Dolly Madison's. I got to say that logo looks a little dated.
Yes.
Looks like it was something you
You know
used.
what? I look a little dated, but you guys somehow put up with me, and I
Right.
appreciate that.
All right. So the Battle of Fort McHenry happening in Baltimore
Yeah,
Harbor.
so we should say Fort McHenry basically protected Baltimore Harbor, and should the fort fall, the ever so important city of Baltimore would likely fall as well.
Right. And they stand firm. And the U.S. flag is going to continue flying over the fort. And a little guy named Francis Scott Key. He was on a ship. He was watching all of this happen. And he penned the verses that will become the national anthem. And I actually have a favorite version of the national anthem. It is the 2019 Super Bowl Lady Gaga version of
let's
the
go.
national anthem.
I think that's probably who he was thinking about
Sure.
when he wrote those. And you guys know the melody.
Yeah.
It's just from a tried and true old
Yeah.
British
Shanty
tavern
song,
song,
yeah.
right?
But the lyrics are a literal blow by blow of what happened during the battle. So if you
Powerful.
break down the lyrics, Miss Keltner was beautifully singing it. The lyrics are literally following the course of the night to see if the fort would hold. But maybe our listeners don't know there's an additional stanza in the longer poem that he wrote that is not included in our national anthem about the, quote, hireling and slave. And what this was reflecting was that the British force did include formerly enslaved men who had fled American slave masters and joined the British. And Francis Scott Key, who was himself a slaveholder, was upset about this and thought it was disgraceful that these former slaves were attacking their former masters. That's kind of, makes you think a little differently about the national anthem.
Yeah, it does. It does for sure. So this war is going to continue on. And actually, Jefferson says, okay, well, the British burned down the White House. We should burn down St. Paul's Cathedral or Westminster Abbey. And there's, again, I'm talking a lot about contingency fund here and like, anyway, I won't get on. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay. Anyways, so we talked about how New England was really angry about this because their entire economy was really tied to British trade. So there's going to be a convention in Hartford, and go figure, it's called the Hartford Convention. And it's when they...
Clever.
Oh, a reminder. That's when they decide, you know what, we may have to break away from this country of ours if we're going to preserve our economy. And there's actually some discussion about whether or not to secede. But that kind of looks, in retrospect, that looked pretty foolish.
Bad optics.
Yeah. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so by the time that the envoys from the Hartford Convention, they reach Washington, the winds had really shifted in this war. Peace had been negotiated at Ghent in Belgium already, and Andrew Jackson, stunning, but this was actually after the treaty. News moved pretty slowly back there. Back then, at the victory of New Orleans, electrified the country, and the Hartford delegates, they looked bad. They looked disloyal, and the Federalist Party is really going to die out after this. They never recover.
And this is a turning point. One of those arguments that you can make as a student. Wartime dissent was constitutional, but politically disastrous when national pride surged. So, who did win the War of 1812? Ain't nobody won that war.
No.
Okay, really? Kinda,
Oh, yeah?
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure the USA won it.
Wow, easy there. You need a Dolly Madison snack cake to
Yeah, I
calm
do.
down.
I would love a.
I got
I haven't
hungry.
had lunch
It's
yet.
like that Snickers commercial.
You know what?
You're not
I
yourself
have-
when you're hungry.
I have 50-year-old Dolly Madison cakes in my bomb shelter at my house.
Perfect.
And so
Well
just-
preserved.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll have you guys come over and snack. So okay,
Snack-a-jawea.
Snack-a-jawea. Wow, way to go. So according to the treaty terms, really nobody won. So politically and culturally, the U.S. did, however. The war affirmed our sovereignty. It's kind of like scraping that piece of gum off your shoe for the last time. It's like, God, the Brits are
Got
finally gone. It boosted manufacturing under the embargo and blockade pressures and put the Federalists into eclipse. The era of good feelings was around the corner.
Yes, and Native nations, however, we mentioned earlier, they're going to lose profoundly, and alliances are going to be broken, lands are going to be seized, and these removal pressures are going to accelerate. And that's the essential comparison here, right? National pride for the United States, but dispossession and displacement for many Native communities.
And finally, internationally, Britain and the United States settled into more of a stable relationship. Maritime rights, those disputes finally kind of recede forever, and the U.S. is going to turn inward to focus more on their own economic development through markets, canals, Western expansion, a new confidence, a new nationalism, USA all the way.
USA all the way, another win.
Okay, we feel good about that. I'll tell you what, let's end it there. We've got a lot more to talk about. We're going to do another episode and cover some of these era good feeling conversations. But for now, thanks for tuning in to APUSH for All. If you like the episode, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple iTunes, YouTube. Leave us a review. And if you got a topic you want us to cover, send us a message on Instagram at APUSH for All.
Until next time, keep learning from yesterday to make sense of today.